Hey everyone, today we're going to be doing a One Piece chapter 1017 analysis video. That chapter is titled Orders. This analysis will feature my friend Ryan.
Hey, how's it going?
So, let's get right into it. The chapter opens up with the Battle of Onigashima heating up. Jinbei is surrounded by officers, and Otama is about to give some orders to the gifters, and I thought that her speech to everyone about switching sides and her trying her best while Queen is staring right in her face was super cute, and it reminded me of Vivi yelling at everyone to stop fighting in Alabasta, and just the way that she was trying so hard just honestly made me tear up a little bit. So, what do you think about that?
I am a huge Tama fan. She's one of my favorite Wano characters. And I am very pro Tama for the crew. I think she was awesome. And I noticed, like, with how nervous she was, not really a fighter by nature. And I'm someone who in the past was very pro Tama joining the crew. And I think that kind of hurts her chances how nervous she is. Not saying that it's impossible, but like it almost seems like she doesn't want to live this kind of life. Now it could be like she's more like Nami and Usopp, and she has really good chemistry with them, and her chemistry is why I want her to join the crew. But it's interesting. But I did think she was just kind of awesome the whole chapter, so I was very impressed. Something else I want to note, kind of in relation to Tama, is Usopp literally off-screened Bao Huang, who is one of like Toby Ropo ninja members, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I agree. I was super happy with Otama this chapter, and I really do also want Otama to join the crew because it would fulfill her connection with like Ace and Luffy taking her to sail the seas. So I think that would be great. I also wanted to bring up so Jinbei is surrounded by a bunch of officers, and he says a line that says, "Of course, it's our job to deal with you officers." And I really just like that line because it just shows how dedicated Jinbei is to his new crew and to Luffy, and I'm just really enjoying seeing more of Jinbei.
Yeah, I'm completely with you. This chapter was interesting. It's had the most single action panels, I think, probably since 1000. We've had a lot of action chapters, but they would like have some action and then have a lot of discussion. But like this chapter had very, very dense action panels back to back to back, just showing a lot of specifically who's moves. But Jinbei also had a lot in there. And it briefly showed Frankie, which was weird. Like very briefly for 3 panels. Um,
Yeah,
and he was kind of banged up, but I thought it was really cool just like checking in with this kind of officer fight, and I thought it was really good.
yeah, there's a lot of chaos going on in this chapter. I mean, it starts with the gifters are battling the traitorous pleasures and waiters, and then Otama turns the gifters to her side as well. And we also see Luffy get pulled out of the water by Law's crew, so we know that he's gonna make his way probably back up to the fight. And then after Otama gives her orders, Onigashima just kind of falls into total chaos. And as you said, yeah, it showed random panels of a bunch of characters like Frankie fighting and a lot of action sequences.
Yeah. So I thought the action was really good. It showed Inuyasha, he's still alive. He's injured despite fighting Jack and the minions, but a either wolf gifter or uh Zoe resident, I forget the race, came up and chased away the minions, so that'll be good. I really like how Oda, in the lead up to chapter 1000, kept making jokes out of all these gifters, and it was really funny seeing how goofy he could come up with, and the fact that they were easily brushed away by, the actually important characters like Sanji, Zoro, and Luffy and
Right.
Jinbei. But I love that he got these actual joke characters and made them important and turned them onto our side. Like, that's just so cool. I thought that was a really good twist because I didn't necessarily see it coming. Like I thought they would be like in those panels and it would set them up as a joke and like, okay, now they're done. But no, Oda goes above and beyond.
Yeah, I like
Um
the way he's handling this giant battle. There's just so much going on. And so let's talk about Queen and Sanji. So Queen tried to fire at Otama while she was giving her speech, and Sanji blasts him in the head with a kick before he can fire. And then, I mean, I thought first of all that panel was sick, and I'm happy that Sanji's getting some action finally. And Queen also refers to Sanji as Judge's son, and Sanji obviously is angry about that and accuses Queen of being a part of an old research team called MADS with his dad Vinsmoke. So, I mean, let's just get into that right away.
Yeah, and this is a little bit of speculation on my part, but I would also assume Caesar Clown was part of Mads,
I
because we
agree.
know
I was gonna
he
say
worked with
that too.
Vinsmoke. So I think something big is gonna happen in Mads. I think this is very prominent setup. Since the time skip, we've had three massive scientists, each having a huge role, each being a major villain, be established, be in major parts of arcs. And we don't really know necessarily what they were working on, except for one project, which is Momonosuke's Devil Fruit. So either there's something really, really special about Momonosuke's Devil Fruit, which could be the case, or there's something entirely different that we don't necessarily know about. There's also the potential weapon that Drake and Kobe were talking about, the weapon that is going to replace the warlords in the eyes of the world government.
Right.
That could have been the product of my ads, but I really have no kind of inkling as to what it could be.
Now,
Um,
do you think that Vegapunk could have potentially been have any ties to this team, or do you think it's completely different?
I think he led this team personally, because we know he led Caesar Clown, that he was the
Right.
superior. I think the words we've gotten are like he works with Judge, but I do think Queen, Judge, and Caesar were all his inferiors, and they were all on this team Mads. And I think we have yet to see the product, except unless it's Momonosuke's Devil Fruit and there's something massive we don't know about it, which has
Yeah.
kind of been signaled.
Yeah, I agree with that. And initially, when they first brought that up, I was immediately thinking Vegapunk, Caesar. And then after this revelation, Queen claims he's a cyborg and actually transforms into a hybrid form that I thought made him look kind of like Doc Ock from Spider-Man. And it looked really goofy, but also somewhat sick at the same time. It's just like this big dinosaur in overalls, but also with these robot arms. What did you think of that?
I wanted to specifically call out how good his hybrid form looked. In particular, I really like off to the left, his tail becomes like you said, kind of a Doc Ock arm. It becomes like a claw hand. And he looks like a beast, and he's holding a sword, which like we've never really associated with Queen before.
Right.
And then his braids are also an arm, which is kind of wild. So I don't know what extent this goes. I would guess that we're not seeing the full extent of it. I think we'll see bits and pieces of it in action later. But yeah, super goofy, but also like pretty cool.
Yeah. It's just like a classic Oda character design, just so crazy, but also manages to look awesome at the same time.
Yeah.
Um, so let's talk about Chopper and Zoro. So Chopper's new Rumble Ball has a side effect that turns him into like a smaller baby version after he's done with it, and it shows him about to give Zoro a super recovery drug that will heal him, but double his pain after it wears off. And we all know that Zoro's okay with taking large amounts of pain, so he's not opposed to taking this drug. And I thought it was a really cool scene where Zoro is just telling them to just give him the drug already, and he says, "I don't care what happens to my body after this. It won't even matter if I can't fight now." And this just signifies how important this battle is in the grand scheme of the story, and how willing Zoro is to just do anything for the Straw Hats. So,
Yeah, I'm completely with you. Actually going back to Queen real quick, something I think people may do, the community, and I'm warning you against doing this. Don't downplay Sanji because Queen is already injured. Sanji's also already injured. It's a pretty even fight in my eyes, but that's just a side tangent that I really threw out there because the community can be frustrating.
right.
Um, Now, what is it? Baby Gramps Chopper is super cute. I love him. He's probably really susceptible to damage in this state. And something else I considered. So we know it extended the timeline of Monster Point Chopper. I wouldn't be surprised if it also amped its strength because he was fighting Perospero and Queen at the same time. It doesn't necessarily have to be the case, but that's something that's entirely possible. And then Zoro is the big one I want to talk about. So, yeah, this I think this is really it has strong parallels with obviously the moment where nothing happened when he took Luffy's pain. Um he is kind of like sacrificing his body to live up to his ideals, and that's something we've seen from him before. Um, and so I think he still has big moments ahead of him, but it is kind of concerning. I was thinking about whether or not there would be actual repercussions from this, because they mentioned like his body gained damage. So
Right.
I'm considering if there'll be some sort of permanent injury. Now, I don't think he'll lose like an arm or anything because um Santoryu is Zoro's thing, three sword style. They're not going to take that away from him before the series ends. But one of the core like pirate tropes that Oda hasn't used that he said he's saving for someone is an eye patch, actually. Because with Crocodile he has the hook hand, and with Zeph he has the peg legs. So I'm wondering if Zoro's actually going to lose his eye and get an eye patch. Like he's actually like, going to open it for this fight. That's an idea I had. But I really do think like there will probably be some sort of huge punishment, but it really does just like show his dedication, and I think there's some big Zoro content coming.
Yeah, and I'm personally hoping that maybe we might get some sort of Zoro and Sanji fighting together scene, and I think that you're right. I mean, I'm a huge Sanji fan, and I don't think we should underestimate him. So I think there's big things for both of them still to come in this battle.
Yeah.
Um, so moving on to the next topic, we get to see the fight between Jinbei and Who's Who, and this is probably one of the biggest lore reveals that happens during this battle. But first of all, I want to say that Who's Who is revealed to be a former member of CP9, and while he's fighting Jinbei, he uses techniques that Jinbei recognizes, and I also want to add that I just really like Jinbei's fighting style and his Fishman karate, and just the way that he moves around and his presence on screen in general is just really great to see. So, first of all, I'm hoping that we get to see more of him in the future chapters and more of him fighting. And Jinbei also remembers a story about a rogue member of CP9 who broke out of prison, and this is obviously Who's Who, and he says they never actually like crossed paths in the past, but it's leading us into like a really interesting part of the story that I'll save for the end. But first of all, I just want to hear your thoughts about this fight.
This is possibly a better drawn fight than everything that was happening between Kaido and Luffy and Law and them. I think the drawing for this fight and the way he portrays the techniques is really, really good. Like I love kind of the gust, kind of bite mark when he uses Fang Pistol. I really like how the ripples are drawn with Jinbei's Fishman Karate. It's a little bit of personal preference, but I think in terms of action, it was just really well paneled and drawn. The framing is really good.
I
So I
agree.
was entirely happy. Their techniques are really cool. It kind of seems like Who's Who had more potential than Rob Lucci. Their Devil Fruits are obviously very similar, with probably Who's Who having the superior one and kind of more versatility with his techniques. But yeah, really good battle. And then of course they mentioned that he was imprisoned for a mistake he made when he was in CP9. He mentions that Rob Lucci was a rival, but that mistake, do you want to get onto that?
Sure. So before we head in to that final piece that we're going to talk about, I just want to mention Who's hybrid form and just like yeah, how similar he looks to Rob Lucci, and it's just such a cool thing to see, just so late into the story, like how relevant everything always is in One Piece. Like Rob Lucci, the thing we're about to talk about in a second that relates back to chapter one even. So, I just really like how every piece of story just like plays a role later down the line in One Piece. And so getting into that final bit, it's revealed that Who's Who was actually the mistake that he made involved failing to guard the Gomu Gomu fruit that Luffy ended up eating 12 years ago. It was being transported on a government ship, and something that I wanted to mention is that in chapter one, when Lucky Roo opens the treasure chest and is shocked to hear that Luffy ate the fruit, he states that it was the fruit that they took from the enemy. So we don't know for sure if the Shanks's crew is the one who stole the fruit from the government, or if they stole it from another crew or something like that. But it's just such a great lore reveal and just so interesting. So let's just get into this.
Uh, yeah, I have several notes about this. So, this implies to me that for whatever reason, the Gum Gum Fruit is massively important to the world government. If they're willing to imprison one of their most promising CP9 members for losing it, that tells me that it's super important, and this makes me I'm operating personally along the lines that Shanks personally stole the fruit, and his crew, obviously, which makes me kind of think that he is kind of at a shadow war with the world government, or at least the celestial dragons, somewhat like Dragon. Um, and I think this is really interesting because I think back to Reverie and how the Gorosei said, "We'll see you only because you're you." I think it's kind of like Shanks and the world government are fighting each other somewhat in secret, but they know each other as enemies, but they are also, like, reasonable with each other. They do negotiate at times, and Shanks is willing to point out that there was a third major threat of Blackbeard, and it makes me think that he thinks Blackbeard is even more threatening than the world government themselves.
Yeah, I think
Those
that's a good point.
it kind of this revelation of Shanks maybe, possibly, probably attacking the world government kinda put me down this rabbit hole of, like, I really do think he's in a massive conflict with them.
Yeah, and I think that it is probably the most likely that Shanks is the one who stole the fruit from the world government, but there could be a chance that they stole it from somewhere else as well, so I just wanted to bring it up. But I really like, I mean, it's just such a great, I mean, the final panel is just amazing. It's who's who, and he's like, that stolen Gomu Gomu fruit had been eaten by him, talking about Straw Hat Luffy and just how the world reacts. And I think personally that the fruit has some sort of importance to Eam, and they were bringing the fruit to him. So, I mean, obviously the fruit's got some capabilities that we're not aware of yet, and I think that it might relate obviously to the overall, maybe to the maybe to the Straw Hat even that we saw with Eam. So, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, and that's something entirely, possible is, if the Straw Hat is maybe Joy Boy's, maybe Joy Boy had the Gum Gum Fruit and Ian was trying to stop the next Joy Boy, from getting the Gum Gum Fruit, and obviously that failed, or depending on how you see Luffy, if he's the next Joy Boy, if it's a reincarnation thing, whatever, they're obviously very paralleled of each other. Or it could have been there's that old theory about Porcus de Rouge having the Gum Gum Fruit, and maybe he was trying to get it um for the purposes of like producing new soldiers or something. But I think it's really interesting what this could mean, and I do think it's like because CP9 works directly underneath the Gorosei and Eam, so I think it's something very high up that they want the Gum Gum Fruit for. And I can't really think of what that would be, but I also considered too that this may have affected how the world government has viewed Luffy through his journey. And maybe that's why after Whole Cake his bounty spiked because they really like the time to get the Gum Gum Fruit has really come back, where like they really feel they need it now. And that could be one of the reasons for the major spike because I have a feeling that the Gorosei and Eam know that Luffy's not actually, at least at the end of Whole Cake, as strong as an emperor. Obviously at this point he's even way stronger than he was at the end of Whole Cake. But it's really interesting and I'm really excited to understand why this seemingly was so important to the world government.
Yeah, and I just think these types of lore chapters are just so great, especially for the community to start theorizing on. And I mean, it was nice that it was also accompanied with a great fight between Jinbei and Who's Who. So overall, I would say definitely a very interesting chapter. I think it is not as good as the chapter from last week, just because I'm such a big Yamato fan, and it was revealed that Yamato's potentially going to sail the seas with Luffy after this fight. So, but just in general, great chapter. And any last thoughts you want to add on this?
No, nothing in particular. I would probably rate this chapter, this is by One Piece standards, by the way, as maybe an 8 out of 10. It was very good. I liked it a lot. I would say it's probably since chapter 1000 a kind of mid-tier chapter because One Piece has just been going crazy lately. But very good. A lot of setup, and I think chapter will be even better once we have the payoff and can appreciate it more.
Yeah, I agree. So, thanks for listening to our analysis, and if you'd like to hear more One Piece analysis in the future, we'll be covering it every week, hopefully. So, subscribe for future content, and thanks for watching.